So we're heading into fall. And we head into fall, just like in spring, we start thinking about what we're going to plant, what we can plant. But before we even think about that, what we need to think about is what we're going to be doing to the soil, what we're going to be doing to our raised beds, what are we going to be doing to our containers, what are we going to be doing into the garden. We've got to amend the soil, because if you're just putting in a bag of garden soil or potting soil that has like a 9-month fertilizer, that alone is not going to do it. I have found out that a lot of these products, even the cow manure compost, has a lot of sand in it. And we know that sand, it drains, it doesn't hold the nutrients, it doesn't hold the water, it doesn't have much nutrients. And I've noticed into my raised bed and containers, as they dried out, they had a lot of sand. I also bought a bag of cow manure compost from the big box store, and I noticed pieces of sand in there. Well, that's not going to do it. So today we're going to be amending the soil into our containers, into our raised beds, so we can get ready for fall planting. So come along with me and let me show you how I amend my beds. So today I'm going to be using non-organic and organic. I usually add it along as the plants are growing, but before I plant, there's certain things I've got to do to prepare this soil for planting. So this product right here, I usually just use because as the season goes along, the soil starts dropping down. There's worms in here that eats it, and it starts settling, and I have to add. So this is a very good additive if you want to put into your raised bed, garden area containers. This is very good. This is what I use. Before, when I was filling these high-rise raised beds here, I used brush pile soil that was made back there, then decomposing for years, and that helped build it up. And then I took a rabbit manure and sprinkled on there to the top of the soil, because rabbit manure is a cold fertilizer. You can put it on there anytime, so that helps me dispose of it. So let's go over here and let's fill this bed up over here. It has settled, it has got leaves, it's got sticks, it's got pine cones, pine straw, anything I could find in the yard to help fill it up. And then I took 4 bags of this, a bag of type of soil here, garden soil, and it put on the top of it. Of course, it has settled some, but I want to add some more before I add my additives for the season. So when we look at this bed right here, we can tell how much it's dropped. Now, it was filled up into the spring, and it has dropped a lot. It's got rabbit manure sprinkled on top of it. It grew super excellent, so I'm going to be topping this off with some garden flower and vegetable garden soil to help top it off. Into my other raised bed over there, I just put some of this in it. It's sit there, and then I planted some radishes and I believe some chard in there, and the plants just did not grow. As I'm looking at this garden soil right here, I do notice I see the sand. I see a lot of sand. Of course, we see the little sticks where it's been chopped up, and then I also see, not as much as used to be, you'll see little green specks that's supposed to be fertilizer that really doesn't decompose. But this year I've noticed I don't even see that much unless it's settled in this bag to the bottom. But I have noticed we're not putting as much of that in there. It says 9 months fertilizer. For 9 months, you're going to have more than just a little bit. Now, yes, when this decomposes and breaks down, it fertilizes. The worms love it. But as I'm looking through this, I don't see hardly any of those green specks. They say it's fertilizer. Very little. They usually put a lot in there. I like to see that, but that little green speck there is supposed to be fertilizer, and I don't see hardly any in here. So we're just going to top this bed off, get some height here, because it will continue to break down for the season. So I don't really make an issue of what I'm adding to it. I basically use what is around the house. So most of the time I'll have natural bone meal, organic blood meal. I'll have vegetable and tomato food, and I'll have garden lime and azomite. Azomite has a lot of minerals. Now this is garden lime. Azomite and garden lime. Garden lime raises the pH. The bottom is azomite. So I just like to mix it up. It looks about the same. The azomite is a little bit browner in color. It has lots of minerals. If I don't put the azomite, that's fine, but since I have it, I'm definitely going to use it. It's a good, very good product. And I just sprinkle it around in here. A lot of people will add garden lime into their garden, say in December, November, so it'll break down. I add mine in January because I don't want all the rain to be washing all my minerals and, you know, away. But I always add garden lime. Even if it breaks down later on, when the plants get bigger, that's when it needs it. The other product I like to use is the bone meal and blood meal. They're organic. Now, organic products will take some time to break down. That's a good thing about kind of purchasing this. It's going to be breaking down. It's supposed to have some stuff in it to help it grow, some fertilizer. When I add this to my vegetables, honestly, I see results. Some people say it would take 3 months for it to break down. This bag is not even open. But some people say it would take 3 months to break down. But even in 3 months, the plants need something to eat on too. But I find out it still helps out the plants while they're growing. I can get this one open. Blood meal is nitrogen, so it's good for your leafy vegetables. It's good for tomatoes. It produces a lot. So we want to make sure that we got some good phosphorus, and we want to make sure we got nitrogen in there. Now this bed right here is new. It's a Bago bed. It's a 6-in-1. It has not been amended. The only thing that's been done is put leaves and sticks and pine cones and stuff like that from the yard in. 4 bags of garden soil on top of it, and that's it. And so it definitely needs to be amended for growing season. So that's the bone meal. If I have vegetable and tomato food, once again, it's organic. It's 3, 5, 6, your NPK. I have this because when I see fertilizer on clearance, I'll pick it up. And that's why I have it. But I find out it's a good product. It stinks, but it's good. Now this is the time that you would want to maybe add compost. Now I like to use cow manure. I like to get this all mixed up. When my plants go in, my plants are growing. As they're starting to take off, then I like to put cow manure around my plant. This is rabbit manure. So rabbit manure has been added on top of those 4 bags. And I just raked this up this morning. I don't let it really pile up. I'll just go ahead and put it somewhere. And it's always usually just the right amount. So we'll just take our rake, kind of work this in Now I'll do this sometimes as much as like in the greenhouse. I did it 2 months ago, or 6 weeks, about 2 months ago, 6 weeks ago. And what I do is I do it just like this, but there's another thing that I do while it's sitting there. I just don't let it be sitting there. I like to take my water hose and work all this organic matter, you know, fertilizer, whatever I'm using, work it into the soil by taking this water hose and letting it just work it right on down into the soil. I always water my raised beds a little bit. So all this is starting to be breaking down. Then at planting time, you know, it gets down where the roots are going to be growing at for later on. Not counting the organic matter is working and breaking down. So we're getting this bed ready for our fall planting. The garden lime has a tendency to not be going down as much as the azomite. So that's another reason I like the water. I like to be sure to get that garden lime down into the soil here or into the garden. Because as I'm putting this water on there, this water is spreading those minerals into the soil. It's not just sitting on top or sitting into a spot. That's why I like the water. Even though I won't have anything into a raised bed, I'll just go ahead and water it. I don't have to water it much as I am right now, but I'll, you know, give it some water and I'll watch those minerals spread out. If I see some minerals just sitting there in a spot, then I'll just keep wetting it and let it spread out into the soil. I have noticed, because of all the sand that's in this garden soil, that you can wet it on top and it looks like it's, you know, it's wet real good. But as you can tell, these minerals, this garden soil, this azomite is still dry. A lot of people make a mistake. Well, they'll wet it just like that and say, oh, it looks wet. You know, it looks wet. And that's pretty much it. It's not soaked up enough. And so we see all this garden soil and azomite sitting on top. This also helps to kind of spread it out some. Water it again. By this third time, this garden soil is going to be wet enough. It'll be wet enough for planting. And I feel a lot better doing it this way, seeing these minerals spread out into this garden soil. It also leaves some on top, because when you plant your seedlings, your little plants, then they don't have enough root system, and they'll need some help to get that root system taken, to take off. So these are cabbage collards. Now usually I grow everything by seed. I didn't grow any of these. I picked these up at Lowe's, and honestly they was very leggy. They look worse than this. They look terrible is what they did. I always try to look and see, like there's 1, 2, 3, 4 in there. Now it's a cast over day, it's cloudy, and so I wouldn't suggest doing this into the sunlight. But because these plants will, some of them will suffer transplant shock. But I let them sit there for 2 days, kept them water because they was dry, and kind of spread these leaves out a little bit. So hopefully they can be untangled from the wind and onto the truck, and so leggy. And what I'm going to do when I plant these, I'm going to plant them a little bit deeper. They should take off. So I already wet the soil into these containers. And basically when I'm planting, I try to judge my plant later on. So I'm going to go around and just kind of make a hole There's that soil right there. It's still not. And when I plant my plants, I also wet down in this hole again. I don't want to put too much water in here. Not sure how many plants I got. I don't want to put too much water in here. I know these are going to grow big, but I'm trying to get as many in here as I can. I guess I'll just spread it over. When I put these plants in there, I do water it, and because I see it's dry. But I try to put these plants at the distance that I can visualize them growing. Sometimes I'll dig a hole and cover it back up and move over. But I like to dig a hole so I can kind of visualize where I'm going to be putting these plants at. I like to use a popsicle stick to help get these out, and hopefully not to damage it any more than what the plants look like they already are. I always look at the root system, see how well it is. They're not root bound. And then all I'm going to do is stick it in that hole. Make sure it's deep enough. Try not to disturb the root system. And cover them up. Usually I'll break that bottom leaf off because it's going to serve no purpose. Puts more weight onto the plant. When they're leggy, I'll try to go ahead and just plant them a little bit deeper, especially when it comes to like collards, cabbages, and things like that. But like I said, most of the time I grow my own, but I did grow some chard, and didn't get it into the ground like I wanted to, and they did get leggy, so I did plant those a little bit deeper. As the plant is growing, I'll take and make sure I put some soil around this plant to help hold it up, especially with the wind. I always try to take if I buy them where I see like 3 or 4 plants in one little section, I'll take and put the ones that only have like 1 plant. So these little, the plants that has like 3 or 4 whatever into it, if you'll gently pull them apart, try to pull them apart, then you'll have a good success rate. So I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of these planted here. And then we just put them, the ones that we pulled apart, into our hole and cover it up. Next, we'll be doing this raised bed. It's a 10-in-1. You can see how it definitely needs to be amended and put some soil into it for the fall season. Do the exact same thing as we did over here. So these beds have already been amended. They've been 6 to 8 weeks ago. They got rabbit fertilizer in there. But once my plants start growing, I like to give them a little bit of nutrients. This is tomato and vegetable organic fertilizer. And then I like to take a little bit of bone meal. Of course, if I have cow compost, I'll take and put some around the plants or in between it. I don't put it near it, but I put it in between it, you know, around it. Just kind of sprinkle it around it. But since these plants are starting to take off, then that was bone meal, start to take off, then I'll just give them a little bit of fertilizer. And this is still amending my soil because it's organic. It'll continue to break down as these plants are growing. Put these over here. I got to transplant a few of these. I want to transplant. I'm not looking so good. Then after this, I'll just take and water it. Just, you know, lightly water it. I don't be really specific with this. I just put it in there because eventually I'll take my little rake and shuffle this soil up to get air to the plants and keep the grass out. As you can tell, I'm not worried about the quantity. I'm just getting it in there. And this is what I do throughout my greenhouse. Just making sure I get enough fertilizer. Organic, it breaks down slowly, so it's not like 13, 13, 13, or 10, 10, 10, or 8, 8, 8. And now all I got to do is water this. So I'm using lime, azomite. These are my carrots. Azomite, blood meal, bone meal, and a vegetable fertilizer. The organic 356 vegetable and tomato food. Of course, it's got rabbit manure in here also. Carrots is a root crop, so it would definitely like some fertilizer, but all plants do, but it's a root crop, so it will continue growing for a while. Sometimes to help me save on fertilizer, I put it, I have to take a little, like it's probably about almost a tablespoon. I'll just throw it down near the plant. Of course, you see the soil is wet, and I'll put the bone meal, the whatever I'm using. You know, it's whatever you decide to use. Where it's just cow compost, manure, or whatever. I just put it right there, and then I like to take my rake or take my hands and shuffle it out, especially when you're dealing with nitrogen. If you got nitrogen, because nitrogen will go back into the air. These plants, they're starting to rapidly grow fast, so I have to make sure that I get this root system, kind of keep it covered up, stay moist. They really fix and take off now.